How can I make my company secure in just a few hours instead of several months? That's what this video is about. Many companies assume that cybersecurity is a very big and complex topic, but you can achieve a lot with small steps. The first important measure you should take is to secure your access points. This means that everywhere user accounts are involved, you should use two-factor authentication whenever possible. Or in general, use secure passwords. This means requiring a certain level of password complexity for all users. With most email providers, you can set this up centrally, or if you have a central IT infrastructure where everyone has to log in with their computer to access their emails, you can also set it up centrally there to define how complex a password should be. But complex in this case means which digits, which numbers, which special characters, which letters, lowercase letters and uppercase letters should be included, and how long should it be. That can be set accordingly there. According to current recommendations, it should be at least 12 characters long, or if that's not possible, then at least 8. But if it's less than that, you should really consider another way to secure access safely. Two-factor authentication is then the next important component here. This means that every time you need to log in somewhere, you are not only asked for your password, but also for a second factor. So what can this second factor look like? Often, this means you receive an SMS confirmation code or an email confirmation link, for example. A sequence of digits sent by email, which you have to enter once and which is different every time. But there are also simpler options, such as a passkey, for example, using your fingerprint or a facial scan if you have the appropriate hardware. On a smartphone, for instance, something like this can be set up. Or there is also the option of using USB sticks. That means, for example, you have to have a USB stick plugged into your computer, one that is specially identified and authorized. And only when it is plugged in is your user ID valid together with your password. Such options exist as well. Depending on what the system supports, you should use such methods if they are offered. As a second step, you should check your backups. That means don't just gloss over it and think, we've checked off backups, but actually check whether they work in an emergency. In other words, actually take a backup and say, I'm going to restore this as a test now. This could mean, for example, using the backup from the previous day or restoring it on a separate system so that I can basically, it's perfectly fine as I work on it every day, not putting anything at risk by making a mistake when restoring the backup. Instead, I check it on a separate system to see if my backup works, so I know I have it when I need it. The next step is raising employee awareness, because only when every employee is informed does it become an effective protection. That means if I only train a part, or if I train one employee particularly well, it doesn't help if I completely leave out another part of the staff. So a basic training, or really just talking to employees about it. It doesn't have to be big, complex, high-tech or fancy. It's simply about telling employees, look out, if you receive emails, they could be fake, they could be phishing emails, especially when it comes to supposed outstanding invoices. You're supposed to pay something, you're supposed to download something. Those are the typical things. Or you're also asked to use some other communication channel, for example, via WhatsApp or LinkedIn, which you normally wouldn't use with this customer or person if you usually deal with them. That's always a red flag, a sign that you should be especially alert as preparation for the ISMS setup, that is for setting up an information security management system where I really deal comprehensively with the topic of information security. I can already sit down for half an hour, either as management or together with the heads of larger departments, and consider what are the biggest risks that could happen. For example, what would happen if business process XY or a server were to fail for an hour or even an entire day? How great would the damage be to my company if, for example, business processes or orders could not be completed on time? Or for instance, if I have an online shop and it is offline for a day, how much revenue might I potentially lose, and how damaging would that ultimately be to my business? Once I have listed all these risks, I can then derive a corresponding priority from them. What, or rather, which implementation of which measures should I basically start with now, or rather, the highest priority. As the final step, I can then really get started and prepare for the ISMS implementation. That means I can consider whom I will make responsible for taking care of this as part of a larger project. First, setting up this initial phase, and that means looking at which measures are actually necessary and appropriate in which areas of the company, and then also determining which additional employees to involve usually department heads who will then implement the measures accordingly within their respective departments. That means that as management, I also say, I'm initiating a process here. I really want to define this as a corporate objective. And I designate person XY to take care of it and also ensure that the necessary resources are made available so that all department heads participate accordingly and say, yes, I support this person in implementing the ISMS. If I now want to have an especially easy way to set up an ISMS, we also offer the self-made ISMS in our online shop for that purpose. That means, how can I, as a small or medium-sized business, achieve a lot even with limited resources in information security? So just take a look at the online shop and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.